It's 6 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday, October 23rd, 1929. You're standing on a street corner in Lower Manhattan, the financial district, Wall Street, and something is wrong. You can feel it in the air. It's not panic yet. It's something worse. It's the moment just before panic, when everyone knows something terrible has happened, but nobody wants to say it out loud. Behind you, the New York Stock Exchange building sits dark and empty. The trading floor closed at 3 p.m., 3 hours ago, but the lights are still on in every brokerage house, every bank, every office building, as far as you can see. A newspaper reporter named Jonathan Leonard will later write that Wall Street tonight is lit up like a Christmas tree. Except this isn't celebration. This is emergency. This is fear. Walk with me down these streets. Let me show you what you'd see, what you'd hear, what you'd feel on the last evening of the old world. Because tomorrow morning, when that opening bell rings at 10 a.m., everything changes. The prosperity of the 1920s, the fortunes made on paper, the belief that America had discovered a new economic reality, where the old rules no longer applied, all of it ends tomorrow. But tonight, right now, you don't know that yet. You suspect it, you fear it, but you don't know it. The streets are crowded, not with the usual evening rush of workers heading home. These people aren't going home. Brokers in expensive suits, their ties loosened, their faces drawn. Bankers who this morning projected absolute confidence now looking at each other with questions in their eyes that nobody wants to answer. Junior traders, young men barely out of college who've made more money in the last year than their fathers made in a lifetime, suddenly realizing that paper wealth isn't real until you sell. And they haven't sold. Look at them. Really look. Some are walking quickly, purposefully, like if they just keep moving they can outrun what's coming. Others stand in small groups on corners, smoking cigarettes, voices low. What are they saying? They're recounting what happened today, trying to understand it, trying to find a reason that makes sense, some explanation that means everything will be fine tomorrow. Because here's what happened. At 2:00 p.m. today, the market was trading normally. Prices were down from the peak 3 weeks ago, but that was expected. The Dow had hit 381 points on September 3rd. It had been climbing for years, up 6 times from where it was in 1921. Everyone knew it couldn't go straight up forever. A correction was healthy, normal, expected. But then, in the last hour of trading, something broke. From 2:00 p.m. to the 3:00 p.m. closing bell, the bottom fell out. Not gradually, not with warning, suddenly, violently. In that 1 hour, the market dropped 4.6%. The Dow fell 21 points, from 326 to 305. In 60 minutes, all the gains since June were wiped out. 2.6 million shares traded in that final hour alone. The ticker tape, which could only print 285 words per minute, couldn't keep up. It was running behind by the time the bell rang. And here's what made it terrifying. Nobody knows why. There was no news, no announcement, no disaster. The market just fell. Like a man who's been running suddenly clutches his chest and collapses. One moment everything seemed fine. The next moment, free fall. You can see it in their faces tonight, the confusion, the fear beginning to override the denial. Because if there's no reason for the drop, there's no reason to believe it will stop. If the market can fall 4.6% in an hour for no reason, what stops it from falling 10% tomorrow? Or 20% or more? The restaurants are packed, not with people celebrating, with people drinking. The speakeasies, those illegal bars that flourished through prohibition, are standing room only. Men who this morning would not be caught dead in such places are shoulder to shoulder with brokers and clerks, all drinking bootleg whiskey, all trying to calm nerves that won't be calmed. They're making jokes, nervous jokes. Just a correction. Buying opportunity. Be greedy when others are fearful. The same phrases repeated over and over like mantras that might make them true if said enough times. But watch their hands, the way they grip their glasses too tight, the way they light one cigarette off the end of another, the way their eyes keep darting to the door like they're expecting news. Bad news, news that will make everything worse. In the phone booths outside every restaurant, men are making calls to their brokers, to their banks, to their wives. How bad is it? What do we do? Can you cover the margin? Because that's the real terror tonight, the margin calls. You see, most of the people on these streets don't own their stocks outright. They bought on margin. They put down 10% and borrowed the other 90% from their broker. As long as stock prices went up, it was brilliant. You could control $10,000 worth of stock with just $1,000 down. But leverage cuts both ways. When prices fall, you don't lose just your $1,000. You lose based on the full $10,000 position. And worse, when your stocks decline in value, your broker issues a margin call. You have to add more money to maintain the required equity ratio. If you can't add money, the broker sells your stocks at whatever price they can get. Whether you want to sell or not, whether it makes sense or not, the broker sells. And tonight, across Manhattan, across America, margin calls are going out. Telegrams, phone calls, letters. You must deposit additional funds by tomorrow morning or your positions will be liquidated. For tens of thousands of Americans, this is the message they're receiving tonight. This is the impossible choice they're facing. Come up with cash they don't have by morning, or watch their positions sold at the worst possible time, locking in devastating losses. Look over there, in the lobby of that hotel. It's overbooked. Every hotel and flophouse in Lower Manhattan is overbooked tonight because the brokers and bankers and traders can't go home. Some live in New Jersey or Connecticut or upstate, but they can't leave. Not tonight. They need to be here tomorrow morning. They need to be on the exchange floor when it opens. They need to execute their orders to salvage what they can, to make the desperate decisions that have to be made, so they're sleeping in hotel lobbies, on office floors, at their desks, anywhere they can close their eyes for a few hours before the nightmare of tomorrow begins. Jonathan Leonard, that newspaper reporter, will write about brokers retreating to nearby hotels or flophouses, all of which were overbooked, and awaited sunrise. Waited for sunrise, like soldiers on the night before battle, knowing something terrible is coming but unable to stop it. And here's something that will stick with you. Down these streets in the financial district, children are playing. Kids from the tenement districts, the slums a few blocks away, they're playing stickball. But look what they're using for balls. Wads of ticker tape. Miles and miles of ticker tape were printed today. All those transactions, all those falling prices, all that wealth evaporating, recorded on little strips of paper. And tonight, after the cleaning crews swept it up and threw it away, the kids from the slums came down and picked through the trash and turned it into toys. Ticker tape balls. They're playing a game, laughing, oblivious to what the adults around them know, that their fathers might lose their jobs tomorrow, that the families might lose their homes, that the world is about to change in ways that will destroy lives. But the children don't know, not yet. They just know there's lots of free paper to play with tonight. Now let's talk about what you're feeling. Because if you're alive in October 1929 and you're in or near the market, you're feeling something very specific tonight. It's not quite panic yet. It's cognitive dissonance. It's the clash between what you believed yesterday and what you're starting to fear today. Yesterday, you believed America had entered a new era, that the boom of the 1920s wasn't a bubble, it was the new normal. You believed that modern corporate management, new technologies like automobiles and radio and electricity, the Federal Reserve's ability to manage the economy, all of it meant the old boom and bust cycles were over. John J. Raskob, a General Motors executive, wrote an article in Ladies' Home Journal in 1929 titled "Everybody Ought to Be Rich." Irving Fisher, one of the most respected economists in America, a professor at Yale, declared on October 17th, just 6 days ago, that stocks had reached what looks like a permanently high plateau. Permanently. He said permanently. This wasn't a fringe voice. This was the establishment, the experts, the people who were supposed to know, and they were telling you that stocks at current prices were reasonable, justified, safe. But tonight, after today's drop, a small voice in your head is asking a question you don't want to answer. What if they're wrong? What if the experts don't know? What if this isn't a new era? What if it's the same old pattern that's played out through history? The pattern of speculation and euphoria, followed by panic and collapse. You push the thought away. You tell yourself it's just a correction. The fundamentals are sound. The economy is strong. This is temporary. By next week, by next month, you'll laugh about the panic of October 23rd. You'll tell the story at dinner parties about how you held steady while weak hands folded, how you bought the dip and made even more money. Except there's another voice, quieter but growing louder. And it's saying, what if tomorrow is worse? What if this is the beginning, not the end? What if you should sell everything right now? Take whatever loss you have to take, get out while you still can. The decision you make tonight, in these hours between the close of trading today and the opening bell tomorrow, this decision will determine your financial fate. And here's the cruelest part. There's no right answer. If you sell tomorrow morning at the open and the market rebounds, you'll lock in a loss and miss the recovery. You'll feel like a fool. Everyone will know you panicked. But if you hold and the market crashes, you'll lose everything. Your savings, your home, your future. So what do? You're standing on a Wall Street corner at 6:30 p.m. on October 23rd, 1929, the last evening of the world you knew, and you have maybe 14 hours to make a decision that will define the rest of your life. Do you trust the experts who say this is temporary? Do you trust your own gut that's screaming danger? Do you hold or do you sell? Here's what makes this moment so important to understand. It's not about the stock market. It's about human psychology at the edge of catastrophe. It's about that moment when everything you believed is suddenly in question. When the ground beneath your feet feels unstable. When you have to make a decision with incomplete information. Under pressure, knowing you might be wrong either way. And tomorrow, when the opening bell rings, you'll find out if you chose correctly or if you're about to lose everything. This is October 23rd, 1929, the night before the crash. The last evening of the old world. And if you were alive then, this is what you would have experienced. This is what you would have felt. This is the decision you would have faced. The children are still playing stickball with ticker tape balls. The brokers are still drinking in the speakeasies. The hotel lobbies are filling with men who can't go home and can't sleep. The lights are still blazing in every office building on Wall Street. And somewhere in the city, margin calls are being delivered, decisions are being made, fates are being sealed. Tomorrow, Black Thursday begins. But tonight, on October 23rd, it's still possible to believe everything will be fine. It's still possible to hope. It's still possible to tell yourself this is just a temporary setback in a permanently high plateau of prosperity. But deep down, in a place you're trying not to acknowledge, you know the truth. The plateau was a cliff, and we just walked off the edge. Let me tell you who you are on this night of October 23rd, 1929, because understanding who was in the market and why explains why the crash destroyed so many lives. This wasn't just rich speculators gambling with money they could afford to lose. This was everyone. Housewives, bookkeepers, chauffeurs, cooks, professors, doctors, plumbers, ordinary Americans who believed they discovered the secret to wealth, and that belief is about to destroy them. You might be Sarah Mitchell, a 42-year-old housewife in Brooklyn. Your husband works at a bank. Good job, steady income. You've got 3 children, ages 8, 12, and 15. For years, you saved. Every week, you put aside a little from the household budget. $5 here, $10 there. By 1927, you had $800 in savings. That was real money. That was security. That was your children's future. But then your sister Martha started talking about the stock market. Martha's husband had bought shares in Radio Corporation of America in 1925 at $85 per share. So in January 1929, you took your $800 to a retail brokerage firm. These firms had sprung up everywhere in the 1920s, specifically designed to serve small investors like you. The broker was friendly, professional. He explained how it worked. You didn't need to invest all $800. You could buy on margin, put down $200, borrow the other $600. That way you could control $1,000 worth of stock. And when those stocks went up 20%, you'd make $200 on your $200 investment, a 100% return. You asked about the risk. What if stocks went down? The broker smiled. Mrs. Mitchell, stocks have been going up for 8 years. The Dow has increased 6 times. The American economy is the strongest in the world. There might be small dips, temporary corrections, but the trend is clear. You're not speculating. You're investing in American prosperity. So you did it. You bought shares in General Electric and US Steel, blue chip stocks, safe stocks, companies that had been around forever, that paid dividends, that represented American industrial might. But tonight, October 23rd, you received a phone call at 5:10 p.m. The broker's voice wasn't friendly anymore. Mrs. Mitchell, due to today's decline, your margin account is below the required equity level. You need to deposit $150 by tomorrow morning, or we'll be forced to liquidate your positions. Or $150. You don't have $150. That's more than a month of what you save from the household budget. You'd have to take it from the regular savings account, the money for emergencies, for the children, and what if you deposit the $150 and stocks fall more tomorrow? What if you lose that too? Your husband doesn't know you invested the grocery money. You were going to surprise him when you'd made enough to pay for the children's college. Now you're lying awake tonight, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you just gambled away your family's security. Or maybe you're Robert Chen, a 28-year-old bookkeeper at a manufacturing company in Chicago. You make $35 a week. That's good money for a young man. You're not married yet, but you're seeing a girl and you're thinking about proposing. You need to save for a ring, for a wedding, for a future. In your job, you handle the company's accounts. You see the numbers, you see the orders coming in, the revenue, the profits. Business is good. The company is growing. And you started thinking, if the company is doing this well, its competitors must be too. The whole economy must be booming. Why shouldn't you get a piece of that? So you started small in 1928, $100 in an automotive stock. It doubled in 6 months. You were hooked. You invested more, and then more. By October 1929, you had $12,400 in the market, which is impressive, except you only earned $120 a year. You know where the extra money came from? You borrowed it from the company accounts, just temporarily. Just until you made enough in the market to pay it back with profit. Nobody would ever know. Except tonight, you're calculating what you owe versus what your stocks are now worth after today's drop. And the numbers aren't working. You're down $400. If you sell tomorrow, you can pay back most of what you took, but not all. You'll be short. And if the auditors find out, you go to prison. Your future is over. The girl you wanted to marry will never speak to you again. But if you hold, if stocks rebound, you can make it all back. You can pay back what you borrowed and nobody will ever know. The question is, will stocks rebound or will they fall further? Tonight you're sitting in your small apartment, running the numbers over and over, hoping the math will change, knowing it won't. Or maybe you're James Patterson, a 55-year-old banker in Boston. You manage other people's money. You're supposed to be conservative, prudent. Your clients trust you with their savings, their retirement, their children's inheritance. And you've been a banker for 30 years. You know the rules, you know the risks, but you also know that in the 1920s the rules changed. The Federal Reserve was managing the economy. Modern corporations were more efficient than ever. New technologies were creating new wealth. And every banker who stayed conservative, who kept client money in bonds and savings accounts earning 3 to 5%, watched their clients leave for competitors who were making 20, 30, 40% in stocks. So you adjusted. You put 40% of your clients' portfolios in stocks. That still seemed conservative compared to some banks doing 70 or 80%. You bought quality stocks. You diversified. You told yourself you were managing risk prudently while capturing the upside of American growth. But today, October 23rd, after that final hour crash, you calculated the losses. Your clients' portfolios are down 15% from the peak. That's $2 million in aggregate losses, on paper, for now. If this is just a correction, they'll recover. But if this is the start of something worse, if your clients start demanding their money back, if they accuse you of gambling with their life savings, you could lose everything. Your career, your reputation, possibly your freedom, if someone decides what you did was criminal negligence. Tonight you're in your office, long after everyone else has gone home. You're looking at the account ledgers. You're trying to decide what to do tomorrow. Sell everything, move to cash, protect what's left, or hold steady, show confidence, hope it rebounds. Every choice feels like a mistake. Every scenario ends badly. Or maybe you're William Brooks, a chauffeur for a wealthy family on Fifth Avenue in New York. You drive a Rolls Royce, you wear a uniform, you open doors and carry luggage and try to be invisible while the rich discuss their business. And you've heard things. Sitting in the front seat while they talk in the back. Standing outside restaurants while they meet with their brokers. You've heard them discuss which stocks to buy, which companies are winning, which industries are the future. And you thought, why shouldn't you get in on it too? They're getting rich. Why can't you? You saved $300 over 2 years. In August 1929, you went to one of those retail brokerages that advertise everyone can invest. You bought shares on margin. The broker said you could control $500 worth of stock with your $300. You bought General Motors, the company that makes the car you drive. That made sense. For 2 months, you checked the prices every day. You watched your account value go up. But tonight, your broker called. Margin call. You need to deposit $200 by tomorrow morning. You don't have $200, you have $47 in your savings account. The only way to get $200 would be to borrow it. And who's going to lend money to a chauffeur? Your only option is to let them sell your position tomorrow. Take the loss. Watch 2 years of savings disappear. Go back to being a chauffeur with no savings and no prospects. Back to where you started, except now you're older and you've learned that the game is rigged for people like you. This is who you are tonight. One of these people, or someone like them. Because only 10% of American households own stocks in 1929. But that's still millions of people, millions of families. And they weren't wealthy speculators. They were ordinary Americans who believed what the experts told them, that stocks were safe, that the economy had reached a new plateau, that everyone could be rich if they just invested wisely. And here's what makes it even worse. The experts believed it too. This wasn't a con. Irving Fisher, that Yale economist who declared stocks at a permanently high plateau on October 17th, he wasn't lying. He'd done the math. He'd analyzed the fundamentals. He'd concluded that stock prices, while high, were justified by the earnings and growth prospects of American companies. He believed it. He had most of his own wealth in the market. When it crashed, he lost everything too. Charles E. Mitchell, the president of National City Bank, one of the most powerful bankers in America, told the public in September that stock prices were reasonable and the economy was sound. He believed it. In March 1929, when there was a small panic, he personally pledged $25 million in bank funds to stabilize the market. He was all in. He went down with everyone else. The people managing the country's largest banks, the professors at the best universities, the businessmen running America's most successful corporations, they all believed this was real. This was sustainable. This was the new normal. They were wrong. Catastrophically, devastatingly wrong. But they believed it. And if they believed it, why wouldn't you? You're a housewife in Brooklyn. You're a bookkeeper in Chicago. You're a banker in Boston. You're a chauffeur in New York. You're not an economist. You're not a professional investor. You're just trying to build a better life for yourself and your family. And every expert, every authority figure, every successful person you knew was saying the same thing. Invest in stocks, participate in American prosperity, secure your future. So you did. And tonight, October 23rd, 1929, you're realizing that you might have made the biggest mistake of your life. You might have gambled away everything you worked for. You might have destroyed your family's security. You might have ruined your future. And there's nothing you can do about it until the market opens tomorrow morning. This is who you are. This is why the 1929 crash wasn't just a financial crisis. It was a human tragedy. It destroyed ordinary people who made reasonable decisions based on the best information available. They trusted the experts. They believed in America. They worked hard and saved and tried to build something. And they lost everything. Tomorrow morning, when that opening bell rings at 10 a.m., your life changes. The question is, how much? Do you lose a little or do you lose everything? Tonight, October 23rd, you don't know yet. But the fear is building, the dread is growing, and sleep is impossible. To understand why you didn't see the crash coming, why nobody saw it coming, we need to go back 8 years, to 1921, because the crash of 1929 was then caused by what happened in October 1929. It was caused by what happened in the 8 years before, by the greatest bull market in American history, by a decade of prosperity so complete, so transformative, that it convinced an entire nation that the old rules of economics no longer applied. In 1921, America was emerging from World War I and a brief but severe recession. The Dow Jones Industrial Average stood at 63 points. Unemployment was high, the economy was contracting. It looked like it might be years before things recovered. But then something extraordinary happened. The economy didn't just recover, it exploded. Between 1921 and 1929, the Dow increased from 63 to 381. That's a six-fold increase in 8 years. Nothing like that had ever happened before. Not in America, not anywhere. And it wasn't just the stock market. Everything was growing, everything was changing, everything was new. This was the decade that transformed America from a rural, agricultural society into an urban, industrial powerhouse. In 1920, most Americans didn't have electricity. By 1929, most did. In 1920, automobiles were luxury items for the wealthy. By 1929, there were 23 million cars on American roads. Henry Ford's assembly line had made them affordable for the middle class. You could buy a Model T for $290. A factory worker could own a car. That had never been possible before. And it wasn't just cars, radios. In 1920, radio was an experimental technology. By 1929, 12 million American households had radios. You could sit in your living room in Iowa and hear a concert from New York City. You could hear the president's voice. You could listen to news, music, entertainment, all broadcast through the air. It felt like magic. It felt like the future. Telephones, movies, refrigerators, washing machines, electric lights, indoor plumbing, all of these technologies that we take for granted today, they all became widely available in the 1920s. Life was changing faster than any generation in history had ever experienced. Your grandmother lived in a world of candles and horses. You lived in a world of electric lights and automobiles. In one generation, everything transformed, and the economy reflected that transformation. Between 1921 and 1929, American industrial production increased by 50%. Corporate profits rose 62% in the first half of 1929 alone compared to 1928. Construction was booming. New skyscrapers rising in every major city. The Chrysler Building, the Empire State Building, monuments to American ambition and success. Retail sales were at record levels. People were buying. Companies were growing. The future looked limitless. So when stock prices went up six-fold in 8 years, it didn't feel like speculation. It felt like stocks were finally catching up to the reality of American economic dominance. The companies were real, the profits were real, the growth was real. Why wouldn't stock prices reflect that reality? And the experts confirmed it. In 1928, John J. Raskob, a vice president at General Motors and a director at DuPont, two of the most successful corporations in America, wrote that famous article in Ladies' Home Journal. Everybody ought to be rich. His argument was mathematical. Or take Irving Fisher, Yale professor, one of the most respected economists in the world, author of multiple books on monetary theory and economic cycles. This wasn't some promoter or huckster. This was a serious academic who'd spent his life studying how economies work. And on October 17, 1929, just 6 days before the crash, he gave a speech in which he declared that stock prices have reached what looks like a permanently high plateau. He acknowledged that stocks were high. He acknowledged they'd gone up a lot. But he argued that the high prices were justified by earnings, by productivity, by the fundamental strength of American business. He was wrong, catastrophically wrong. But he believed it. And if Irving Fisher believed it, why wouldn't you? The government believed it too. President Calvin Coolidge, in his final State of the Union address in December 1928, declared that America had never met with a more pleasing prospect than that which appears at the present time. The economy was strong, unemployment was low, growth was steady, everything looked perfect. When Herbert Hoover took office in March 1929, he promised to continue the Coolidge prosperity. Nobody in government saw any danger. Nobody warned that stocks might be overvalued or that the boom might end badly. The Federal Reserve, which had been created in 1913 specifically to manage the economy and prevent financial panics, was divided on what to do. Some officials worried about speculation, but others argued that high stock prices reflected real economic growth. They couldn't agree, so they did very little. They raised interest rates slightly in August 1929 from 5% to 6%, hoping to cool down speculation without crashing the market. It didn't work. The market kept rising through September, and then it fell. This is the context you're living in during the 1920s. Every authority figure, every expert, every successful person is telling you that America has entered a new era, that modern management techniques, new technologies, the Federal Reserve's ability to manage money supply, all of it means the old boom and bust cycles are over, that America can grow steadily, sustainably, indefinitely, that investing in stocks isn't gambling, it's participating in American prosperity. It's the rational thing to do, and the mechanics of the market made it so easy. This is where buying on margin becomes critical to the story, because you didn't need to have money to make money. You could borrow it. Here's how it worked. You go to a broker. You want to buy $1,000 worth of General Electric stock, but you only have $100. No problem. The broker will lend you the other $900. You put up your $100. The broker loans you $900. You now control $1,000 worth of stock. The stock is held as collateral for the loan, and you pay interest on the $900 loan, typically around 8 to 12% annually. Now, as long as the stock goes up, this is brilliant. This is why margin buying seems so attractive. You could participate in the stock market with very little money. You could make returns far exceeding what the stocks themselves returned. Retail brokerage firms advertise this heavily. Small investors can make big profits. Don't let lack of capital prevent you from joining America's prosperity. They made it sound not just easy, but almost patriotic. You were supporting American business by investing. By mid-1929, 300 million shares were being carried on margin. That's an enormous number considering only about 10% of households were in the market at all. It meant that the vast majority of stock ownership was leveraged. People didn't own stocks outright. They owned them with borrowed money, and that created a hidden fragility that nobody wanted to acknowledge. Because leverage doesn't just multiply gains, it multiplies losses. And more dangerously, it creates forced selling. Let's go back to that example. You bought $1,000 of GE stock with $100 down and $900 borrowed. The broker requires you to maintain at least 10% equity. As long as the stock is worth $1,000 or more, you're fine. But what happens if GE falls to $900? Now your equity is zero. You've lost your entire $100. And the broker is starting to lose money because the collateral is only worth $900, but the loan is $900. There's no margin for error. So the broker issues a margin call. You have to deposit more money immediately to restore the equity cushion. If you can't, the broker sells your stock to get his $900 back. And here's the doom loop. When stocks start falling, margin calls go out to thousands of investors simultaneously. They all need to deposit cash or face forced selling. Most can't deposit more cash, so brokers sell their stocks. That selling drives prices lower, which triggers more margin calls, which forces more selling, which drives prices lower still. It's a cascade, a death spiral, and once it starts, it feeds on itself. But in the 1920s, nobody worried about that scenario because stocks only went up. Oh, there were dips, brief corrections. In March 1929, there was a small panic when stocks fell sharply for a couple days. Charles Mitchell, that president of National City Bank, stopped the panic by announcing his bank would provide $25 million in credit to support the market. The market recovered immediately. See, the system worked. Dips were buying opportunities. Smart money bought the dips. There was something else fueling the euphoria. The belief that America was special, that America was different, that the old rules that applied to other countries throughout history didn't apply to America because America had something unique. Democracy, free markets, innovation, the American spirit of rugged individualism. Other countries had booms that turned to busts. Other countries had speculative manias that ended in crashes. But America was different. America was stronger. America had figured it out. This is the most dangerous belief in all of finance. This time is different. Those four words have preceded every major financial disaster in history. The South Sea Bubble in 1720, the Mississippi Bubble in 1720, the British Railway Mania of the 1840s, the 1920s Florida land boom that collapsed in 1926. Every time, the people in the middle of it believed their situation was unique, that the old rules didn't apply, that they discovered a new paradigm, and every time, they were wrong. But you, standing in October 1929, you don't have the benefit of hindsight. You're living through it, and everything you see supports the idea that this time really is different. The technologies are real, the companies are profitable, the economy is growing, your neighbors are getting rich, and the culture reflected the euphoria. Advertising in the 1920s sold possibility, sold the idea that anyone could be anything. That America was a land of unlimited opportunity, that if you worked hard and invested smart, you could become wealthy. The ads showed cars, houses, luxury goods, all within reach if you just made the right choices, if you just invested in American growth. The parties, the jazz clubs, the speakeasies, the fashion, the energy. The 1920s were called the Roaring Twenties for a reason. Everything felt exciting, everything felt possible. Everything felt new. Women had gotten the right to vote in 1920. Fashion changed dramatically. Hemlines rose. Women cut their hair short. They wore makeup. They smoked in public. They drank in speakeasies alongside men. The old Victorian rules were dead. This was the modern era, the jazz age, the age of the automobile and the radio and the motion picture. Old constraints didn't apply anymore. Not socially, not economically. And the wealth inequality, which was extreme, didn't feel like a problem because everyone believed they could climb the ladder. The top 1% controlled 32% of wealth in 1929, higher than at any point in American history before or since until recently. But that didn't create resentment, because the story everyone believed was that you could become part of that 1%. You could invest in stocks, you could start a business, you could make it big. The American dream wasn't just rhetoric, it felt real, it felt achievable. This is the euphoria that blinded everyone. It wasn't just greed, it wasn't just stupidity, it was a genuine belief, supported by evidence, reinforced by experts, validated by personal experience, that America had entered a new era of permanent prosperity, that the stock market was the vehicle for ordinary people to participate in that prosperity. That buying stocks, even on margin, even with borrowed money, was the smart, rational, patriotic thing to do. And that belief is what makes October 23rd, 1929 so devastating. Because tonight, for the first time, that belief is cracking. Today's crash, that sudden 4.6% drop in the last hour, that wasn't supposed to happen. There was no reason for it. No news, no disaster. The market just fell. And if it can fall for no reason, that means maybe the experts don't know. Maybe the fundamentals don't matter as much as everyone thought. Maybe this isn't a new era. Maybe this is the same old story of speculation and euphoria followed by panic and collapse. But you don't want to believe that. You can't believe that. Because if that's true, then everything you did, all the money you invested, all the risks you took, all of it was a mistake. So tonight you're fighting against that realization. You're telling yourself it's temporary. You're telling yourself it will bounce back. You're telling yourself the experts are right and your fear is wrong. But deep down, in a place you're trying not to look, you know that the euphoria is over. You know that tomorrow morning when that opening bell rings, the new era ends and the old rules return. And the old rules say that what goes up must come down. That speculation always ends in panic. That manias always end in crashes. And that when they do, ordinary people like you lose everything. This is the euphoria that blinded everyone. And tonight, October 23rd, 1929, it's starting to lift. And what you're seeing underneath terrifies you. Here's the truth that's hardest to accept. The crash didn't come out of nowhere. It wasn't a bolt from the blue. It wasn't unpredictable. There were warnings. Clear, obvious, unmistakable warnings. For weeks, for months. And you ignored every single one of them. Not because you were stupid. Not because you were reckless. But because human beings are remarkably good at explaining away evidence that contradicts what they want to believe. And you wanted to believe the boom would continue. Let's go back to September 3rd, 1929. The Dow Jones Industrial Average hits an all-time high of 381.17 points. This is the peak, the absolute top. Everything that happens after this moment is decline. But on September 3rd, you don't know that. You just know that stocks have been climbing for 8 years and they've reached a new record. That feels like confirmation, like validation. The trend is continuing. Your investments are safe. But here's what else is happening on September 3rd that you're not paying attention to. Steel production is declining, not growing, declining. US Steel, one of the largest corporations in America, one of the stocks you probably own, is producing less steel than it did 3 months ago. Why? Because orders are slowing, construction is slowing, manufacturing is slowing. The real economy, the economy of actual goods and actual production, is contracting. Automobile sales are falling. In the first half of 1929, auto sales were down compared to 1928. This is significant because automobiles were the defining industry of the decade. Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, these companies represented American innovation and prosperity. They employed hundreds of thousands of workers. They purchased steel, rubber, glass, all the inputs that kept other industries running. If auto sales are falling, that's a leading indicator that the broader economy is weakening. But you don't see it that way. You see it as a temporary slowdown, a seasonal adjustment, nothing to worry about. Housing construction is declining. Fewer homes being built in 1929 than in 1928. This is another critical sector. Construction employs laborers, carpenters, electricians, plumbers. It purchases lumber, cement, copper wire, fixtures. A slowdown in construction ripples through the entire economy. But again, you rationalize. Maybe there was overbuilding. Maybe the market is taking a breath. It doesn't mean anything bad is coming. And here's the thing that should terrify you, but doesn't. Bank failures are already increasing. In the first 9 months of 1929, several hundred small and medium-sized banks failed across America. Not big Wall Street banks, regional banks, farm banks, community banks. They made bad loans. They couldn't collect. They ran out of cash. They closed their doors. And their depositors lost everything because there's no FDIC insurance yet. That doesn't exist until 1933. When a bank fails in 1929, you lose your savings. Gone. Forever. But you hear about these bank failures and you think they're isolated incidents. Bad management. Local problems. Nothing that affects you in New York or Chicago or Boston. The big banks are fine. National City Bank, Chase National, JP Morgan. These institutions are solid. They're not going anywhere. So the small bank failures don't register as a warning. They register as somebody else's problem. Then we get to September 18th. This is a key date. Stocks fall sharply. Not as bad as October 23rd will be, but sharp enough that seasoned investment bankers start raising concerns. Some are quoted in the newspapers saying stocks have gone too high too fast, that valuations are stretched, that a correction is overdue. The London Stock Exchange shows weakness. European markets are softening. International investors are getting nervous. You read these articles. Maybe you even feel a small flutter of concern. But then what happens? The market recovers the next day. Stocks bounce back. The dip was temporary. See? The pessimists were wrong. The bears were wrong. The market proved it can shake off bad days and keep climbing. This reinforces your belief that you should ignore warnings, because the warnings keep being wrong. September 20th. The London Stock Exchange collapses. This is major news. London is the financial capital of Europe. The pound sterling is still a global reserve currency. When London crashes, it should be a 5-alarm fire warning for American investors. It should be a clear signal that something is wrong in the global financial system. But American stocks barely react. They dip for a day, then recover. American exceptionalism kicks in. Maybe Europe has problems, but America is different. America is stronger. The American economy is booming, while Europe is still recovering from World War I. Their problems aren't our problems. This is confirmation bias at its most dangerous. You're filtering information to support what you already believe. Evidence that contradicts your beliefs is dismissed or rationalized. Evidence that supports your beliefs is embraced and amplified. You're not doing this consciously. Nobody thinks I'm going to ignore this warning because it's inconvenient. You genuinely believe your rationalizations. Your brain is protecting you from cognitive dissonance by constructing a narrative where everything is fine. October 3rd. This is another critical warning that's ignored. Philip Snowden, the British Chancellor of the Exchequer, gives a speech in which he describes American stock markets as a speculative orgy. This is diplomatic language for calling you all insane gamblers. This is a high-ranking British government official, someone with access to global financial data, someone with no political reason to attack America, publicly stating that American stock prices have detached from reality. That speculation has replaced investing, that a crash is coming. How do American markets respond? They shrug. Who cares what some British bureaucrat thinks? He's probably jealous that America is prospering while Britain is stagnant. Or maybe he doesn't understand the new technologies and productivity gains that justify higher stock prices. Or maybe he's trying to talk down American markets to make British investments look better in comparison. Whatever his motivation, he's wrong about America. That's the consensus, that's what you believe. Now we get to October, the critical month. Stocks have been drifting lower since early September. Nothing dramatic, just a slow, grinding decline. The Dow, that peaked at 381 on September 3rd, is now in the 320s by mid-October. That's a decline of about 15%. Enough to get your attention. Enough to create some concern. But not enough to panic. After all, stocks went up 27% in 1928. A 15% pullback from all-time highs still leaves you up significantly. If you bought earlier in 1929 or before, this could just be a healthy correction before the next leg higher. October 8th, Governor Franklin D. Roosevelt of New York announces the creation of a committee to investigate utility holding companies. This matters because utility stocks have been the hottest sector in the market. Utility holding companies are complex financial structures where one company owns shares in multiple utility companies. And those companies might own shares in other utility companies, creating pyramids of debt and cross-ownership. These structures are profitable when everything is rising, but they're fragile, built on leverage and confidence. If that confidence cracks, the whole pyramid collapses. Roosevelt's investigation is a political move. He's positioning himself for a future presidential run by showing he's tough on financial speculation. But the investigation itself sends a signal. Maybe these utility stocks are overvalued. Maybe the structures are unstable. Maybe smart investors should be cautious. The market dips on this news. Utility stocks lead the decline. But again, you tell yourself it's temporary. It's political. It doesn't reflect the underlying value of these companies. October 15th, more warnings about speculation appear in newspapers. The Investment Banking Association's Committee on Public Service Securities publishes a report warning against speculative and uninformed buying of utility stocks. This is the industry itself warning investors. This isn't outsiders or politicians. This is bankers who make money from the market telling people to be careful. That should be a massive red flag. When the people profiting from speculation tell you to slow down, that's like a casino owner telling you to stop gambling. They wouldn't say it unless they saw serious danger. But you don't interpret it that way. You interpret it as covering their liability. They're warning people so they can't be sued later if something goes wrong. Or they're trying to prevent new investors from competing with existing players. Or they're being overly cautious. Whatever the reason, it doesn't apply to you because you're not speculating. You're investing. You own good companies, blue chip stocks. You've done your research. You're fine. October 16th. Utility stocks drop sharply. This is now a clear sector crisis. The stocks that led the market higher for the past year are falling hard. Massachusetts announces its own investigation into utility company practices. New York has already started. Other states are likely to follow. The regulatory pressure is mounting. But you tell yourself, utilities are just one sector. The rest of the market is fine. If anything, this is an opportunity to buy industrials and consumer stocks at good prices, while everyone else panics about utilities. October 18th, Friday. The market goes into what will later be described as a free fall for that day. Stocks drop across all sectors, not just utilities now. Everything. The Dow falls from 321 to 317. A modest decline in percentage terms, but on heavy volume. A lot of shares changing hands, a lot of selling. The ticker tape runs behind. By the time the closing bell rings at 3 p.m, there's a sense of unease. But it's Friday. You have the weekend to calm down. Markets are closed Saturday and Sunday. By Monday, surely this will blow over. Over the weekend, October 19th, 20, you read the newspapers. They're full of reassuring quotes from bankers and economists. Charles Mitchell from National City Bank says stock prices are reasonable and the economy is fundamentally sound. Other prominent figures echo similar sentiments. You want to believe them. You need to believe them. Because if they're wrong, you've lost everything. So you convince yourself they're right. Monday will bring a rebound. This is just temporary weakness, a buying opportunity for those brave enough to act. Monday, October 21st. The market opens lower and stays lower. No rebound. More selling. The Dow closes at 321, down for the day. Tuesday, October 22nd. Same pattern. Opens lower, stays lower, closes at 314. Now you're starting to feel the pressure. Your margin positions are underwater. You haven't received a margin call yet, but you know you're close. You calculate your equity daily. You're watching it erode, but you hold, you don't sell, because selling locks in the loss. As long as you don't sell, it's just a paper loss. It can come back. It will come back. You just need to hold on. Then comes Wednesday, October 23rd. Today, the day that changes everything. And here's what makes today different from all the previous warnings. Today there's no reason. On October 18th, there was selling, but you could attribute it to utility sector concerns. Over the weekend, there were some negative headlines. But today, Wednesday, October 23rd, there's nothing. No news, no announcement, no disaster. The market opens normal. It trades sideways most of the day, and then around 2 p.m, an hour before close, it just breaks. Prices start falling. Fast, no buyers, only sellers. The volume surges. 2.6 million shares trade in that last hour. The ticker tape can't keep up. By the time the closing bell rings, the Dow has dropped from 319 to 305. A 4.6% decline in 60 minutes. And nobody knows why. That's what terrifies you. When bad news causes a decline, you can at least understand it. You can wait for the bad news to be resolved. But when the market falls for no reason, when selling feeds on itself, when panic spreads for purely psychological reasons, that's when you realize you're not in control. Nobody is in control. The market has its own momentum now, and that momentum is downward. Tonight, sitting in your apartment or your office or a speakeasy, drowning your fear in bootleg whiskey, you're finally confronting what you've been denying for weeks. Every warning you received, you ignored. Every red flag, you rationalized. Every dip, you called a buying opportunity. And now finally you're understanding that the warnings were real. The danger was real. The crash everyone predicted is happening. And you're caught in it. The warnings were there. September's economic weakness, the bank failures, London's crash, Snowden's speech, Roosevelt's investigation, the utility sector collapse, the Federal Reserve's rate increase back in August. All of it pointed to the same conclusion. The market had gone too high, was due for a major correction. And when that correction came, it would be severe because of all the leverage and speculation built into the system. But you didn't want to see it, because seeing it would have required you to sell, to take a loss, to admit you'd made a mistake, to give up on the dream of easy wealth. So you held, you rationalized, you believed the experts who told you everything was fine. And now, tonight, October 23rd, you're paying the price for that willful blindness. Tomorrow morning, the market opens at 10 a.m. and you finally understand that the warnings were right. The crash is here and there's no escape. October 23rd, 1929, Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. You wake up after a restless night. The market opens in 30 minutes. You've made your decision. You're holding. This is just a correction. The experts say the fundamentals are sound. By next week, this will all seem like an overreaction. You repeat these thoughts like a prayer. Like if you believe them hard enough, they'll become true. 10 to a mile a.m. The opening bell rings at the New York Stock Exchange. You're not on the trading floor. Most people aren't. But across America, in brokerage offices, in banks, in private offices, people are gathered around ticker tape machines. These machines receive telegraph signals from the exchange and print stock prices on thin strips of paper. They make a ticking sound as they print. That's why they call it ticker tape. And right now, millions of Americans are watching those machines, watching the prices, hoping for good news. The market opens lower. That's expected after yesterday's close, but it doesn't collapse. Prices drift. Some stocks are down a point or two, others are flat. It's not great, but it's not a disaster. You feel a small wave of relief. Maybe yesterday was the worst of it. Maybe today we stabilize. Maybe tomorrow we start recovering. You allow yourself to hope. 10:30 a.m. You're at work, but you can't focus. Every 15 minutes, you call your broker's office. What's the market doing? The clerk tells you. Still down, but steady. No major moves. You go back to your desk. Try to work. Can't. Your mind is calculating your positions. If stocks stay at current levels, you're down about 18% from your purchase price. That's painful, but survivable. You don't have to sell. You can hold. Wait for the recovery. You just need prices to hold here. Don't fall further, just hold. 11 hours a.m., you call again. Any changes? The clerk's voice is neutral. Professional. Still down. Volume is moderate. Nothing unusual. That's good news. Moderate volume means no panic. Just normal trading. Weak hands selling. Strong hands buying. Your strong hands. You're going to hold. 11:30 a.m. You try to eat lunch, but you're not hungry. Your stomach is tight. You keep thinking about the margin call you received last night. You need to deposit $150 by tomorrow morning, or they'll liquidate your positions. You don't have $150 in cash, you'd have to take it from savings, the family emergency fund, the money set aside for emergencies. But is this an emergency? If you deposit the $150 and stocks recover, you'll feel smart. You'll feel you protected your positions when others panicked. But if you deposit the $150 and stocks fall further, you'll lose that too, and you'll have nothing left. 12 Tamil p.m., noon, you call the broker again. How's the market? There's a slight pause before the clerk responds. That pause makes your heart race. Still down. About the same as this morning, maybe a touch weaker. A touch weaker. What does that mean? A point? 2 points? You asked for specifics. Your General Electric shares opened at $330. They're now at $325. Your US Steel shares opened at $205. They're now at $202. So yes, a touch weaker. You calculate your total position value. You're now down 20%. Still not catastrophic, but getting worse. 10 p.m. The market is drifting lower. Nothing dramatic. Just a slow, steady decline. You're not alone in your anxiety. All across America, people are calling brokers, checking prices, calculating losses, trying to decide what to do. Hold or sell. Wait or act. Every minute, the decision gets harder. 1:30 p.m. You're back at your desk, pretending to work. A colleague walks by. He's in the market too. Everyone is. He leans in, keeps his voice low. How are you doing? You lie. Fine, just writing it out. He nods. Me too. This is just a shakeout. Weak hands. You both want to believe that. You both need to believe that, because the alternative is too terrible to contemplate. 1 p.m. 1 hour until close. You call the broker's office. The clerk's voice sounds different. Stressed. Sir, we're getting very busy here. The market is getting volatile. Volatile. That's a word that makes your blood run cold. What's happening? Prices are starting to fall faster. Volume is picking up. I need to go, sir. We have a lot of calls. He hangs up. You sit there, phone in your hand, fear rising in your chest. 2:15 p.m. You call back. The line is busy. You try again. Busy. Again. Busy. You can't get through. That's bad. That means something is happening. Something big. You need information. You need to know what's going on, but you can't reach your broker. 2:20 p.m. You leave your office. You tell your boss you're sick. You need to go home, but you don't go home. You head downtown to the financial district, to your broker's office. You need to see the ticker tape yourself. You need to know what's happening to your money, to your future, to everything you've worked for. 2:30 p.m. You're on the street, moving fast, almost running. The financial district is only 10 blocks away. Other people are moving the same direction. Men in suits, all heading to brokerages, to banks. You can see it in their faces. The same fear you're feeling. Something is happening. Something bad. 2:35 p.m. You reach your broker's office. The door is propped open. Inside, it's chaos. The small office, which normally has maybe a dozen people scattered around quietly watching the ticker tape, now has 50 people crammed in. Everyone pushing to get closer to the tape. Everyone watching the prices scroll by. And the numbers you're seeing make your stomach drop. General Electric, $315. You bought at $350, it was $330 this morning. In 6.5 hours, it's down 35, that's a 10% drop in one day. US Steel, $193, you bought at $215, it was $205 this morning, down 22 in one day. Radio Corporation of America, the stock everyone owns because it's been the highest flyer of the boom, $420. It was $505 just 2 months ago. It was $450 this morning, down $30 today alone. 2:40 p.m. The ticker tape is running behind. The prices you're seeing were actual trades from 10 minutes ago, which means right now, at this moment, prices are even lower than what's printing. You're looking at old data, stale data. The losses are worse than what you're seeing, and that means you're making decisions with incomplete information. You don't know where your stocks are actually trading right now. Nobody does. The system can't keep up. 2:45 p.m. The office clerk, the same young man you've been calling all day, is at his desk with multiple phones pressed to his ears. He's shouting orders. Sell 100 GE at market. Sell 200 US steel at market. Market orders. That means sell at whatever price you can get. Take whatever the buyers will pay. People are panicking. They're bailing out. And when people sell at market during a falling market, they're just pushing prices lower, creating a cascade. 2:50 p.m. You push closer to the ticker tape. You need to see your stocks, see the exact prices. A well-dressed woman next to you is crying. Actually crying. Tears running down her face. A man in an expensive suit is standing completely still. Face pale. Hands shaking. He's not moving. He's not talking. He's just staring at the tape in shock. Someone behind you mutters, "This can't be happening. This can't be happening." Over and over, like a mantra. 2:55 p.m. 5 minutes until close. The volume of trades is staggering. The ticker tape is printing continuously. Hundreds of transactions per minute, and they're almost all sellers. You can see it in the pattern. Big blocks of shares changing hands at declining prices. 500 shares, 1,000 shares, 2,000 shares, all selling, all pushing prices down. The buyers aren't stepping in. There's no floor. No level where people say, "Okay, that's cheap enough, I'll buy." Every decline just triggers more selling. The clerk behind the desk shouts to the room. Margin calls going out tonight to anyone below equity requirements. You'll need to deposit additional funds by tomorrow morning. A man near the front yells back, "What if we can't?" The clerk doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. Everyone knows. If you can't meet the margin call, they sell your positions. They liquidate. They take whatever they can get and they send you the bill for whatever's left. 3:00 p.m. The closing bell rings. The ticker tape keeps printing. It's 20 minutes behind now. The trades that happened in the last 20 minutes of the day, the final desperate selling, haven't even printed yet. You won't know your final losses for another 20 minutes. You're standing in a room full of people who just watched their savings evaporate. Some are silent. Some are talking rapidly, trying to convince themselves and others that this is temporary. Some are asking the clerk questions he can't or won't answer. 3:05 p.m. The ticker tape keeps running. You watch. General Electric, 308, 305, 302. Each print is another knife in your gut. U.S. Steel, $188, $185, $183. You're calculating in your head. Your total position is down nearly 30% from where you bought. 30% in one day. Not over weeks or months. In one day. Actually in 1 hour. Because the market was stable until 2:00 p.m. Everything that destroyed you happened in the last 60 minutes of trading. 3:10 p.m. More prices printing. Radio Corporation of America, $400. Someone gasped. RCA was at $550 in August. It was at $450 this morning. It's now at $400. That's a 20% loss in 7 hours. Anyone who bought RCA on margin in the last few months is completely wiped out. Their equity is gone. They owe money to their brokers. They don't own stocks anymore. They own debt. 3:15 p.m. The room is starting to empty. People are leaving, faces ashen, walking like they're in shock, which they are, shell-shocked. That's the term they'll use later. Like soldiers who've seen too much combat. These people just watch their financial futures explode. Some are going home to tell their families what happened. Some are going to speakeasies to drink away the terror. Some are going to hotel rooms because they can't face going home. Not yet. Not until they've processed what just happened. 3:20 p.m. The final prices print. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at 305,985, down from 395,17 yesterday. That's a loss of 19.32 points, a decline of 5.9%. But that's for the whole day. Most of that loss came in the last hour. From 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., the Dow fell 21 points. In 1 hour, 6.3% in 60 minutes. The Times average, another popular index, dropped from 415 to 384. All of its gains since June wiped out in 1 hour. You stand there staring at the final numbers on the ticker tape. Your General Electric shares closed at $298. You bought them at $350. You're down 15%, but with margin, you're down your entire initial investment, plus you owe money. Your US Steel shares closed at $183. You bought at $250 now, same story. Your equity is gone. Your savings are gone. And now you have to decide what to do tomorrow. 3:25 p.m. You walk out of the broker's office. The street is crowded with people leaving other offices. Everyone has the same stunned expression. Nobody's talking. Nobody knows what to say. What can you say? In 1 hour, in 60 minutes, the greatest boom in American history ended. The euphoria died. The dream evaporated. And reality came crashing down on millions of people simultaneously. You start walking. You're not sure where you're going. Home, eventually. But first you need to walk. Need to move. Need to process. You pass restaurants that will be packed tonight with brokers drinking. You pass hotels that will be overbooked with people who can't go home. You pass the New York Stock Exchange building. Dark now, empty now, but tomorrow morning it will open again and the nightmare will continue. 3:30 p.m. You find a phone booth. You need to call your wife. Tell her what happened, but you can't. Not yet. You can't find the words. How do you explain that you gambled the family savings and lost? That you invested the grocery money and it's gone? That you need to decide tonight whether to take money from the emergency fund to meet a margin call or let them sell your positions and accept the total loss? How do you explain that you believed the experts? That you trusted the system? That you did what everyone said was smart and it destroyed you? You stand in the phone booth, receiver in your hand, unable to dial. Around you, Wall Street is lit up like a Christmas tree. Lights burning in every office, brokers and clerks and traders working late into the night, calculating margin calls, processing orders, preparing for tomorrow. Because tomorrow, Thursday, October 24th, when the market opens, this doesn't end. This is just the beginning. Today, Wednesday, October 23rd, in 1 hour, from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., the old world ended. The world of easy money and permanent prosperity and new eras that eliminated old rules. That world is gone. And what's coming tomorrow is the world of consequences. The world where leverage destroys instead of multiplies. The world where panic feeds on itself. The world where everything you believed was proven catastrophically wrong. You finally dial home. Your wife answers. "How was work?" she asks. You pause, you try to find words. Finally you say, "I need to come home, we need to talk." She hears something in your voice. What's wrong? You can't answer. You just say, I'm coming home now. You hang up, you step out of the phone booth, and you start the long walk home to tell your family what you've done, to tell them that tomorrow morning you have to make an impossible decision, to tell them that the future you promised them, the security you were building, the dreams you shared, all of it is in jeopardy. All because of 1 hour, one terrible hour when the market broke. When panic overwhelmed reason. When the warning signs you ignored turned into the reality you can no longer deny. This is October 23rd, 1929, 3:30 p.m. The worst hour in American financial history just ended. And tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. it gets worse, so much worse. But tonight, right now, you don't know that yet. You just know that something fundamental changed in that last hour. Something broke that can't be fixed, and your life will never be the same. 6:45 p.m. You're standing outside your apartment building. You've been walking for over an hour. Just walking. Trying to find the courage to go inside. To face your wife. To admit what you've done. The October evening is cool. The street lights are coming on. Ordinary people are coming home from ordinary jobs. They're carrying groceries, talking about dinner, planning their evening. They don't know. They have no idea that the world just changed. That tomorrow morning, millions of Americans will wake up to financial devastation. That the prosperity of the 1920s ended today at 2 p.m. You climb the stairs. Each step feels heavier than the last. You reach your door. Your hand is on the knob. You can hear voices inside, your children. They're laughing, playing, living their lives without fear, without knowledge of what's coming. You close your eyes, take a breath, turn the knob, walk inside. 7 p.m. Your wife sees your face and knows immediately that something is wrong. What happened? The children look up from their toys. You force a smile. Nothing. Just a long day. You tell them to keep playing. You take your wife into the kitchen, close the door, and then finally you tell her. You tell her about the market, about the crash in the last hour, about the margin call, about the decision you have to make by tomorrow morning. She doesn't say anything at first. She just looks at you. And in her eyes you see it. Not anger. Not yet. First comes shock, then disbelief, then the slow, dawning realization of what this means for your family, for your future, for everything you've worked for. Finally, she speaks. How much? You tell her. You tell her the numbers. How much you invested. How much you borrowed. How much you've lost. How much you owe. She sits down. She's very still, very quiet. When she finally looks at you again, the question she asks is the same question millions of American wives are asking tonight. How could you risk everything without telling me? You don't have a good answer. You say what everyone says. You thought it was safe. Everyone was doing it. The experts said it was fine. You were trying to build a better future. You were trying to secure the children's education. You were trying to give her the life she deserved. She's not crying. Not yet. She's in shock. She's processing. She's calculating, just like you've been calculating all day. She asks the critical question, what do we do tomorrow? And that's the question that's being asked in millions of households across America tonight. What do we do tomorrow? 7:30 p.m. You spread the family finances out on the kitchen table. The savings account has $240. The margin call is for $150. If you pay it, you'll have $90 left. That's your entire financial cushion, your emergency fund, the money that's supposed to protect you if someone gets sick, if someone loses their job, if something unexpected happens. And the terrible irony is that something unexpected just happened. And using your emergency fund to meet a margin call isn't fixing the emergency. It's doubling down on it, because here's the calculation that's tearing you apart. If you pay the $150 and stocks recover tomorrow, you'll protect your positions. You'll ride out the storm. In a few weeks or months, when stocks are back up, you'll look back on tonight as the moment you showed courage. You held when others panicked. You protected your investment. You'll tell the story with pride. But if you pay the $150 and stocks fall further tomorrow, which is what your gut is screaming will happen, then you lose the $150 too. And you'll need to deposit more and more until you have nothing left, until you've poured all your savings into a losing position. until you've destroyed everything trying to save an investment that can't be saved. The alternative is to let them liquidate your positions tomorrow morning. Take the loss, walk away. You lose what you've already lost, but you stop the bleeding. You preserve the $240 in savings. You protect something. You accept reality and move on. But that means admitting defeat, admitting you were wrong, locking in a devastating loss, watching them sell your stocks at the worst possible prices, and then living with the knowledge that if stocks rebound next week, you sold at the bottom. You gave up right before it turned around. This is the choice facing millions of Americans tonight. And there is no right answer. Both paths lead to potential ruin. Both paths require you to bet your family's future on a guess about what happens tomorrow. And you don't know. Nobody knows. That's what makes this night so unbearable. You have to make a life-changing decision with no information. Just fear, just hope, just desperation. It's 11 p.m. The children are in bed. Your wife is sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the savings passbook. You're on the phone. You're calling your brother. He has some money saved. Maybe he can lend you $150. Just for a few days. Just until the market stabilizes. You explain what happened. You hear the hesitation in his voice. He asked the same questions your wife asked. Why didn't you tell him you were investing? Why did you use margin? Why did you risk so much? You don't have good answers. You say you'll pay him back with interest. You promise. He says he needs to think about it. He'll call you back. You know what that means. He's going to say no. He's going to protect his own family. You can't blame him. You'd do the same in his position, but it means you're on your own. The $240 in savings is all you have. That's the decision. Use it or don't. Nothing else is coming. 8:30 p.m. Across America, these same conversations are happening. Millions of them. In apartments and houses from New York to California. Husbands telling wives what they've lost. Wives asking how this happened. Children overhearing words they don't understand. Bankruptcy. Liquidation. Margin call. Families sitting at kitchen tables doing math that doesn't work. Trying to find money that doesn't exist. Calling relatives who can't help or won't help. Making decisions that will haunt them either way. And in the financial district of Manhattan, a different kind of night is unfolding. Wall Street is ablaze with light. Every office building illuminated. Every brokerage house working. Every bank calculating. Because the margin calls aren't just going to individual investors. They're going to everyone. And the firms need to process them all. Need to send telegrams, make phone calls, prepare liquidation orders. Get ready for tomorrow morning when thousands of positions will be sold simultaneously. 9:30 p.m. You walk down to the corner and buy a newspaper. Tomorrow morning's early edition is already available. You want to see what the papers are saying, what the experts are predicting. You need guidance. You need someone to tell you what to do. The headline is cautious but not panicked. Stocks decline sharply in late trading. The article quotes bankers saying the decline was unexpected but that fundamentals remain sound. Charles E. Mitchell of National City Bank is quoted saying, "The decline in stock market prices has carried many issues below their true value." You read that line over and over. Below their true value. That means they're cheap now. That means this is a buying opportunity. That means if you can hold on, if you can meet the margin call, you'll be rewarded when prices recover. This is what you want to hear. This is what you need to believe. But there's a small voice in your head asking a different question. If Charles Mitchell knows the stocks are cheap, why isn't he buying? Why isn't he putting the bank's money into the market? Why is he just saying reassuring words? You don't want to listen to that voice. You want to believe the experts. You want to believe tomorrow will be better. So you take the newspaper home. You show your wife the quotes. See, they say it's temporary. They say the stocks are undervalued. She looks at you. She doesn't say what she's thinking. That you believed the experts when they said stocks would go up. That you believed them when they said it was safe to buy on margin. That you believed them when they said this was a new era. And they were wrong. Why should you believe them now when they say everything will be fine? 9:30 p.m. Back in Manhattan, the speakeasies are packed. These illegal bars, hidden behind unmarked doors, accessible only to those who know the secret knock, are overflowing tonight. Brokers, bankers, traders, all drinking, all trying to numb the fear, all trying to process what happened. Some aloud, telling war stories, claiming they saw it coming, claiming they sold yesterday, claiming they're positioned perfectly to profit from tomorrow's bounce. Nobody believes them. Everyone knows they're lying. Everyone's just trying to convince themselves they'll survive. Others are quiet, sitting alone at the bar, drinking whiskey, staring at nothing. These are the ones who know they're finished. They had everything in the market, everything on margin. Today's crash wiped them out. Tomorrow's liquidation will make it official. They're drinking because there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no way to fix what's broken. A reporter named Jonathan Leonard is making his rounds tonight, talking to people, taking notes. He'll later write about this night, about how Wall Street was lit up like a Christmas tree, about how brokers and businessmen crowded into restaurants and speakeasies after a night of heavy drinking. They retreated to nearby hotels or flop houses, all of which were overbooked and awaited sunrise. He's documenting the end of an era, the last night of the old world, the night before everything changes. 10 p.m. You're lying in bed. You can't sleep. Your wife is beside you. She can't sleep either. You're both staring at the ceiling, both thinking the same thoughts. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? The question loops in your mind. No answers, just fear. You think about your father. He's a farmer. He never invested in stocks, never trusted them. Always said the only real wealth is land and hard work. You thought he was old-fashioned, out of touch, didn't understand the modern economy. Tonight, you realize he was right. He saw this coming in a way you couldn't. Because he'd lived through panics before. He knew that easy money always becomes hard losses, that speculation always ends in tears, that when something seems too good to be true, it is. You think about your children, asleep in the next room, innocent, protected, for now. Tomorrow, depending on what you decide tonight, their lives might change forever. If you lose everything, they lose their security, their future, their chance at college, at a better life. You were supposed to protect them. You were supposed to provide, and instead you gambled their future on a market you didn't understand. 10:30 p.m. You get out of bed, you can't lie there anymore. You go to the kitchen, pour a glass of water, sit at the table. The savings passbook is still there. $240. That's all that stands between your family and financial ruin. You pick it up, you hold it, you try to decide. The clock on the wall ticks, each second bringing you closer to tomorrow, closer to the decision, closer to the opening bell at 10 a.m. when you'll find out if you chose correctly or if you destroyed everything. The night feels endless. Time has stopped. You're suspended in this moment of paralysis, this moment before consequences, this moment before everything changes. 2 hours p.m. Back on Wall Street, the lights are still burning. Inside the brokerage offices, clerks are working through the night. They're processing thousands of margin calls. They're preparing liquidation orders. They're calculating which positions need to be sold tomorrow morning. They're printing out statements that will be delivered to clients showing their losses. They're doing the brutal mathematics of financial collapse. Some of them are young men fresh out of college. They got these jobs in the boom times. They thought they'd joined a growing industry. They thought they'd have careers on Wall Street. Tonight, they're starting to realize they might be out of work by next month. Because when the market crashes, trading volume drops, commissions drop, revenues drop, and brokerage firms start laying people off. The clerks working through this night are processing not just client losses, they're processing their own upcoming unemployment. 11:30 p.m. You're still at the kitchen table. You've been sitting here for an hour, not moving, just thinking. Your wife comes out. She can't sleep either. She sits across from you. Neither of you says anything for a long time. Finally, she speaks. What are you gonna do? You look at her. You realize you've made your decision. You don't know if it's the right decision, but it's the only one you can make and still live with yourself. You're going to let them liquidate. You're going to take the loss. You're going to preserve the $240 because you can't risk the emergency fund on a market that's falling apart. You can't take money meant to protect your children and throw it at a losing bet. Even if stocks recover tomorrow, even if you regret this decision for the rest of your life, you can't risk everything. Not anymore. Not after what you saw today. Your wife nods. She agrees. She's relieved, actually, because the alternative was too terrifying. The alternative was watching you pour more money into the collapse, watching you chase the losses, watching you destroy everything, trying to save an investment that might already be worthless. At least this way, you stop the bleeding, you accept reality, you move forward with what you have left. Midnight, October 24th has begun. Black Thursday. Though you don't know that name yet. You don't know that when the market opens in 10 hours, it will be worse than today. Much worse. You don't know that today's crash was just the warning. That tomorrow is when the real catastrophe begins. You don't know that by tomorrow afternoon, the Dow will have lost another 11%. That ticker tape will be hours behind. That police will be called to the exchange to control potential riots. That bankers will meet in emergency sessions trying to save the market. That nothing they do will work. You don't know any of that yet. You just know that you're exhausted, that you've made your decision, that tomorrow morning you'll call your broker and tell him to sell, to liquidate your positions, to get out at whatever price he can get. You'll take your losses, you'll move on, you'll rebuild, somehow. 12:30 a.m. You finally go back to bed, you lie down, close your eyes, but sleep won't come. Your mind won't stop. You keep calculating, keep wondering, keep second guessing. What if you're wrong? What if tomorrow is the bottom? What if stocks rally and you miss it because you panicked? What if the experts are right and this is temporary? What if? But you've made your choice. You can't change it now. You have to live with it. You have to accept that you might be making a mistake, that you might regret this for the rest of your life. But you also have to protect your family. And that means stopping the losses. That means preserving what you can. That means admitting defeat before defeat takes everything. 1 a.m., you're still awake. So is your wife. So are millions of Americans. All lying in the dark. All facing the same fears. All waiting for sunrise. All wondering what tomorrow will bring. All knowing it will be bad but not knowing how bad. All trapped in this terrible night between the warning and the catastrophe. Between the crash that happened and the crash that's coming. Between the world that was and the world that will be. Outside your window, the city is quieter than usual, but it's not silent. You can hear cars, sirens, voices. New York never sleeps completely. And tonight, the financial district certainly doesn't sleep. The lights are still burning, the clerks are still working, the margin calls are still going out, the decisions are still being made, the fates are still being sealed. In a speakeasy on Wall Street, a broker is on his 7th whiskey. He's telling anyone who will listen that he's ruined, that he used client money, that they'll find out tomorrow, that he'll go to prison. Nobody knows if he's serious or just drunk. Nobody really cares. Everyone has their own problems tonight. In a hotel lobby near the exchange, a dozen men are sleeping in chairs. They tried to get rooms, but everything's booked. So they're sleeping where they can, waiting for morning, waiting for the opening bell, waiting to find out if they're survivors or casualties. They're still in their suits. They haven't gone home. Some of them can't go home. Can't face their families yet, not until they know for sure, not until the final reckoning. In Brooklyn, a housewife is crying, quietly so her children don't hear. She invested the grocery money. It's gone. She doesn't know how she'll feed the children this week. Her husband doesn't know she did it. She was going to surprise him with the profits. Instead, she has to tell him she gambled away money they need to survive. Tomorrow morning, after he goes to work. She'll find the courage somehow. But tonight, she just cries. In Chicago, a bookkeeper is packing a bag. He's leaving, running, because tomorrow the auditors come, and tomorrow they'll discover what he did, how he borrowed from the company accounts, how he thought he'd pay it back before anyone noticed, how he was wrong. He's buying a train ticket tonight, heading west, changing his name, starting over, because staying means prison, and he can't face that. So he runs, and his family will wake up tomorrow to find him gone. To find a note, to find their lives destroyed by his choices. In Boston, a banker is in his office at 1 a.m. He's going through his clients' portfolios, calculating losses, preparing statements, rehearsing what he'll say when they call tomorrow, demanding explanations. Some will be reasonable, some will be angry, some will threaten lawsuits. He'll survive those, but some will be crying. Some will be desperate. Some will tell him he's destroyed their lives. Those are the ones he can't prepare for. Those are the ones that will haunt him. Come on, AM, you've been in bed for 3.5 hours. You haven't slept, not even for a minute. You keep thinking about that last hour of trading. $2 p.m. to $3 p.m. How everything fell apart so fast. How the prices just collapsed. How the volume surged. How the panic spread. How in 60 minutes the dream died and the nightmare began. And you keep thinking about tomorrow. About 10 a.m. when the market opens. About calling your broker. About giving the order to sell. About hearing the prices. About calculating the final loss. About accepting that it's over. About starting to rebuild from ruins. About explaining to your children why things are going to be different now. Why daddy made a mistake. Why they need to be careful with money. Why the future looks different than it did yesterday morning. 3 a.m. In the financial district, the lights are finally going out. The clerks have finished their work. The margin calls are processed. The orders are prepared. Tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m., they'll start making phone calls, delivering the news, executing the liquidations, turning paper losses into real losses, turning hope into despair. But for now, at 3 a.m., they're going home, or to hotels, or to speakeasies for one more drink, anywhere they can close their eyes for a few hours before it all begins again. 4 a.m., the first hints of dawn are appearing on the eastern horizon. The night is almost over. The longest night of your life is almost over. In a few hours, the sun will rise. The city will wake up. The market will open. And you'll find out if the decision you made tonight was right or wrong. If you protected your family or failed them. If you should have held on or if selling was smart. If today was the bottom or if there's further to fall. But right now, at 4 a.m., you still don't know. You're still suspended in this moment of terrible uncertainty, still trapped in this night that won't end, still waiting, still fearing, still hoping against hope that somehow, some way, everything will be okay, even though you know it won't be, even though you know tomorrow will be worse, even though you know the world changed today and will never be the same. This is the night of October 23rd, 1929, the night before Black Thursday. The night when millions of Americans lay awake, facing impossible choices, watching their futures dissolve, and waiting for a tomorrow they know will bring only more pain. This is the night that changed lives, that destroyed families, that taught a brutal lesson about greed and speculation and believing that this time is different. This is the night you'll remember for the rest of your life. The night everything ended, the night before the crash. In a few hours the opening bell rings. And then you'll know, for better or worse, you'll know. October 24th, 1929, Thursday, 9:45 a.m. You're standing outside your broker's office. You got here early. You couldn't stay home. You needed to be here when the market opens. Needed to see it for yourself. The office won't officially open until 10 a.m., but the door is unlocked. Inside, the clerk who worked through the night is still at his desk. He looks exhausted. His tie is loosened. His eyes are red. He barely glances at you when you walk in. He's seen a dozen people already this morning, all with the same haunted look, all knowing what's coming. 9:50 a.m. More people arrive. The small office that normally holds maybe 15 people is now packed with 30, 40, 50. Everyone pushing toward the ticker tape machine. Everyone waiting. The conversation is hushed. Nobody wants to say out loud what they're all thinking. That today will be worse than yesterday. That the nightmare is just beginning. The ticker tape is silent. The market hasn't opened yet. The machine sits there. That little mechanical device that will soon print the financial death sentences for thousands of people in this room and millions across America. You stare at it, waiting for the first trade, waiting for the first price, knowing it will be bad, not knowing how bad. 9:55 a.m. A woman next to you is praying, literally praying, hands clasped, eyes closed, whispering, you catch fragments. Please God, let it recover. Please, my children need... Her voice breaks. She stops, opens her eyes, looks at the silent ticker tape with the same desperate hope you're all feeling. Please let it be better. Please let yesterday have been the worst. Please let today bring recovery. 10 a.m. The opening bell rings at the New York Stock Exchange, 14 blocks away. You can't hear it from here, but you know it happened. And within seconds, the ticker tape starts to click, starts to print. And the first prices that come through make your stomach drop. US steel opens at 175 and yesterday it closed at 183. It's down $8 at the open, before a single minute of trading, before any news, just down. General Electric opens at 287, yesterday it closed at 298, down 11. Radio Corporation of America opens at 300 NIDADIs, yesterday it closed at $400, down $20, every stock, every single one, opening sharply lower. And then the volume starts to pour in. Within minutes, the ticker tape is running behind. The trades are happening faster than the machine can print them. By 10:05 a.m., the tape is showing prices from 10:02 a.m., a 3-minute delay. By 10:15 a.m., the delay is 8 minutes. By 10:30 a.m., the delay is 15 minutes. Nobody knows what stocks are actually trading at. You're watching stale data, ancient history. The real prices in real time are worse, much worse. 10:30 a.m. The clerk behind the desk is answering phone after phone. His voice is mechanical, emotionless. Yes, we're liquidating margin accounts that didn't meet yesterday's call. No, we cannot wait. The positions are being sold now at market. I understand, sir, but those are the rules. You signed the margin agreement. I'm sorry. He's not sorry. He can't afford to be sorry. He's processing 50 liquidations this morning. 50 people losing everything. He can't feel empathy for everyone or he'll break down. Your turn comes. You tell him to sell your positions. Sell everything. Get whatever you can get. He writes down your account number. He says it will be executed as soon as possible given the volume. You ask what you'll get. He says he doesn't know. He can't know. The prices are changing by the second. Whatever the market will pay when your sell order reaches the floor, that's what you'll get. You nod, you step back, you wait. 11 a.m. The ticker tape is now 30 minutes behind. The crowd in the office has grown. Maybe 75 people now, more pouring in every minute. Some are here to watch, some are here to sell. Some are here because they can't be anywhere else. They need to witness this. They need to see with their own eyes what's happening to their money, to their futures, to their lives. A man near the front starts shouting, "This can't be real. These prices can't be real." He's riding away. The prices printing on the ticker tape are from 30 minutes ago. The real prices are worse, but he means something else. He means this is impossible. This shouldn't be happening. America is the strongest economy in the world. These are the best companies in the world. How can they be worth 20, 30, 40% less than they were 2 days ago? Nothing changed. No disasters, no wars, no bank failures, just fear, just panic, just selling feeding on itself. The clerk ignores him. He's heard this speech a dozen times already today. Everyone goes through the same stages: denial, anger, bargaining. Everyone believes their situation is unique, that they deserve special treatment, that someone should save them. But nobody's being saved today. Today, everyone drowns together. 11:30 a.m. You're still watching the tape, still calculating. Your General Electric shares, wherever they sell, you're looking at a 25 to 30% loss from your purchase price. But with margin, that means you've lost your entire initial investment. The $100 you put down is gone, and you might owe money depending on where they executed the sale. USA Steel, same story. The money you thought you were investing for your children's future, for your family's security, it evaporated in 2 days, October 23rd and October 24th. 2 days that destroyed your financial life. 12 p.m., noon. Word is spreading through the office. Someone heard from someone on the trading floor. A group of bankers is meeting right now. Thomas Lamont from JP Morgan, Albert Wiggin from Chase National, Charles Mitchell from National City Bank, the biggest names in American finance. They're meeting to discuss what to do, how to stop the panic, how to save the market. Hope flickers in the room. Maybe they'll fix this. Maybe they'll step in. Maybe they'll buy. Maybe they'll save everyone. 12:30 p.m. The bankers have acted. Word comes through. They've pooled resources. They're buying stocks, blue chip stocks, US Steel, General Electric, AT&T. They're placing large buy orders to stabilize prices, to show confidence, to stop the panic. And for a brief moment, it works. The ticker tape, still printing prices from 45 minutes ago, starts showing some upticks, prices stabilizing, small bounces. The crowd in the broker's office erupts in nervous cheers. See, it's over. They saved it. We're going to be okay. But you notice something. The clerk isn't celebrating. He's seen this before. In smaller panics, in previous scares, the bankers always step in. They always buy, and it always works for a while. But then what? The bankers can buy enough to create a temporary bounce, but they can't buy everything. They can't absorb millions of shares being sold by panicked investors. They can prop up prices for an hour, maybe two. But if the selling continues, if the fear continues, eventually they run out of money or willpower and the market falls anyway. Once upon 1 p.m., the temporary bounce fades, the selling resumes. The ticker tape is now over an hour behind. The trade's happening right now at 1 p.m. won't print until after 2 p.m. You're watching history, old data, meaningless information. And that's almost worse than watching the collapse in real time, because your imagination fills in the gaps. You imagine the prices are even lower than what's printing. You imagine the worst, and you're probably right. 1:30 p.m., a well-dressed businessman enters the office. He looks around at the crowd, at the ticker tape, at the faces of people watching their wealth disappear. And he does something unexpected. He laughs. Not a happy laugh, a bitter, cynical laugh. We're all fools, he says to nobody in particular. We believed the lie. We believed that this time was different. We believed we discovered perpetual prosperity. And now we're learning the oldest lesson in finance. What goes up must come down. And the higher it goes, the harder it falls. Nobody responds. Nobody disagrees. Because he's right. You all believed. You all thought you were smart. You all thought you'd beaten the game. And now you're all learning that the game was rigged from the start. That leverage works both ways. That fear is stronger than greed. That panic is contagious. That markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. All the old lessons, all the warnings your parents gave you, all true, all ignored, all being learned the hard way. 2 p.m. The ticker tape is 90 minutes behind. The trades from 12:30 p.m. are just now printing. The afternoon session on the exchange has been chaos. 12.9 million shares have traded so far. That's almost double the previous record. The ticker tape, designed for maybe 5 million shares a day, is completely overwhelmed. And every trade printing shows declining prices. Every single one. Relentless, brutal, unforgiving. You finally get word. Your sales have been executed. The clerk hands you a slip of paper. General Electric sold at $281.80. US Steel sold at $170. You calculate quickly, you lost everything. Your initial $200 investment is completely gone. And after the broker takes their commission and collects the interest on the margin loan, you actually owe them £50. You don't own stocks anymore. You own debt. You came here with savings and dreams, you leave with nothing and a bill to pay. The clerk sees your face. He's seen this expression 100 times today. He says matter-of-factly, you need to settle the balance by end of business tomorrow. You nod. You can't speak. You just nod. You take the slip of paper. You walk out. 3 p.m. The closing bell rings. You're back on the street now. Walking, no destination, just walking. The financial district is crowded with people spilling out of offices. Thousands of them, all with the same shell-shocked expression. The walking wounded, financial casualties, lives destroyed in 6 hours of trading. The final numbers will trickle in over the next hour as the ticker tape catches up. The Dow lost 11% today, from 305 to 272 in one session. The worst single-day percentage decline in stock market history at that point. But it's worse than that sounds, because the Dow is an average. Some stocks fell 20%, some fell 30%, some, the more speculative issues, fell 50% or more. 12.9 million shares traded, nearly 3 million in the first 3 minutes alone, as panicked sell orders poured in at the open. The ticker tape didn't catch up until 7:08 p.m., over 4 hours after the close. For 4 hours, nobody knew the full extent of the damage. They just knew it was bad. Now, as the final prices print, they know exactly how bad. 3:30 p.m. You're sitting on a bench in a small park. You need to go home. You need to tell your wife what happened. But you can't. Not yet. You need time. Time to process. Time to accept. Time to figure out what you're going to say. How do you explain that the decision you made last night, the decision to let them liquidate, resulted in you owing money? How do you explain that you not only lost everything you invested, but now you owe 15 more? How do you explain that you took a risk to build a better future and instead destroyed your present? Around you, the city continues. People walking, cars, driving, vendors selling newspapers, life going on. And it's disorienting because your life just ended. Your financial life just collapsed. And the world doesn't care, doesn't notice, doesn't stop. Everyone else just keeps moving. And you're sitting on a bench, frozen, unable to process what just happened. 4 p.m. You finally go home. You walk in. Your wife sees your face. She knows. She doesn't ask. She just knows. You tell her anyway. You tell her you sold. You tell her the prices. You tell her the loss. You tell her you owe $15. She sits down. Very slowly, very carefully. Like if she moves too fast, she'll break. And then finally she cries. She cries for the savings that are gone. For the security that's lost. For the future that died. For the dreams that will never happen. You hold her. You cry too. Because there's nothing else to do. The money is gone. The stocks are sold. The debt is real. It's over. And all you can do is accept it and figure out how to move forward. 6 p.m. Thursday evening. You're sitting at the kitchen table. The same table where you sat last night making your decision. The newspapers are full of headlines. Stocks crash in heavy liquidation. Huge selling wave creates near panic. Unprecedented volume overwhelms exchange. But the editorials are still cautiously optimistic. They say the worst is over. They say the banker's intervention proved the system can be stabilized. They say this was a necessary correction that will lead to healthier markets. You want to believe them. God, you want to believe them. Because if the worst is over, then maybe you can rebuild. Maybe you can save again. Maybe in a few years you can get back to where you were. But you don't believe them. You can't believe them. Because you believed them before and look where it got you. Friday, October 25th. The market opens tentatively. Volume is lower. About 6 million shares. Prices drift. Some stocks are up slightly, some are down slightly. The banker's intervention from yesterday seems to be holding. The panic has subsided. Maybe, just maybe, the crisis is over. The newspapers say so. The experts say so. For a moment, people dare to hope. Saturday and Sunday, October 26-27. The weekend brings a chance to breathe, to assess, to plan. Across America, families are having the conversations you had Thursday night, calculating losses, figuring out what's left, deciding what to do next. The newspapers are full of reassuring quotes from business leaders. The fundamental soundness of business justifies confidence. Values have been driven far below their real worth. This represents an excellent buying opportunity. But beneath the public confidence, there's private fear. Because everyone knows the margin loans are still out there. The leverage is still in the system. If stocks fall again, if the selling resumes, the cascade will continue. All those margin calls that didn't go out yet because prices stabilized on Friday, they're waiting, ready to trigger. If prices drop just a little more, it's not over. It's just paused. Monday, October 28th. Black Monday. The market opens down. And it never recovers. All day, relentless selling. No bounces. No support. Just selling. By the close, the Dow has fallen 38.33 points. A 12.82% decline. In one day, the bankers don't intervene this time. They tried on Thursday. They stopped the panic for 2 days. But they can't do it again. They don't have enough capital. They don't have enough willpower. The market is bigger than them. The fear is stronger than their money. They step aside and let it fall. Tuesday, October 29th. Black Tuesday. the day that will define the crash, the day that will be remembered for generations. The opening bell can't be heard because of the shouts of sell, 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 drowning it out. In the first 30 minutes, 3 million shares trade, and another $2 million in wealth vanishes. By noon, people have stopped watching the ticker tape because it's 3 hours behind. They don't know what stocks are trading at. They just know they're selling. They have to sell. Margin calls, panic, fear, the need to get out at any price. 16.4 million shares trade on Black Tuesday, a record that will stand for decades. The Dow falls another 57 points, another 11.73%. In 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, the market has fallen 23%. The gains of the entire previous year wiped out in 48 hours. Billions of dollars in wealth gone, not transferred, not moved, gone, disappeared, evaporated, as if it never existed. Which, in a sense, it didn't, because it was paper wealth, built on leverage, built on confidence, built on the belief that prices would keep rising. And when that belief died, when the confidence vanished, when the leverage reversed, the wealth disappeared because it was never real. It was always just numbers on paper, promises, dreams, and now those dreams are dead. By the close, on Tuesday, October 29th, the panic has exhausted itself, not because people stopped being afraid, but because there's nobody left to sell. Everyone who could be forced out has been forced out. Every margin account that could be liquidated has been liquidated. Every weak hand has folded. The survivors are those who had no leverage, those who owned stocks outright, those who could afford to hold through the crash, which is maybe 10% of investors. The rest are destroyed. November 1929. The market tries to stabilize, bounces briefly, rallies for a few days, then falls again. By mid-November, the Dow is at 199. Down 48% from the September peak. Half the market value gone in 11 weeks. But this is just the beginning. Because what nobody realizes yet is that this isn't just a stock market crash. This is the beginning of the Great Depression. The economy contracts. Unemployment rises. Businesses fail. Banks fail. The Federal Reserve, believing the market will self-correct, does nothing. President Hoover, believing in limited government intervention, does little. The downturn accelerates. The market, which people thought had bottomed in November 1929, falls further. By the end of 1930, the Dow is at 165, down 57% from the peak. But still, it gets worse. 1931, 1932. The full weight of the depression settles in. 25% unemployment. 9,000 banks fail. People lose life savings. Homes are foreclosed. Breadlines form in every major city. And the stock market continues to fall. By July 1932, the Dow hits its ultimate bottom, 41 points, down 89% from the September 1929 peak. A stock that was worth $100 in September 1929 is now worth $11. The human cost is beyond calculation. That bookkeeper in Chicago who embezzled company funds to invest in stocks, he went to prison. 3 years. His family lost their home. His fiancée left him. His life destroyed. The housewife in Brooklyn who invested the grocery money, she never told her husband. She starved herself so the children could eat, lost 40 pounds over 6 months. Eventually he found out. They nearly divorced. That banker in Boston who managed client accounts, he was sued by 7 clients, lost his license, worked as a clerk for the rest of his life, never recovered his reputation. And you, sitting at your kitchen table in November 1929, you owe your broker $15, you pay it from the remaining savings. That leaves $225. Your entire financial cushion is $225. Your investments are gone, your dreams are gone, your confidence is shattered. You go to work every day. You come home. You look at your children. You wonder how you'll pay for their future. You wonder how you'll ever feel secure again. Your wife doesn't blame you, not out loud. But you see it sometimes in her eyes. The question, how could you? How could you risk everything? How could you believe the lies? And you don't have an answer. Because you don't know. You believed what everyone believed. You trusted the experts, you followed the crowd, and it destroyed you. November 23rd, 1954, 25 years later. The Dow Jones finally closes above 381, the September 3rd, 1929 peak. 25 years to recover. A quarter century. If you invested $10,000 in September 1929 and held through the entire crash and depression, you broke even in 1954. 25 years of earning nothing. 25 years of waiting. And that's if you held. Most people didn't hold. Most people were forced out. Most people sold at the bottom and never got back in. Most people lost everything, and it stayed lost. This is what comes next after October 23rd, 1929. This is what happens when the euphoria dies and reality returns. This is what happens when leverage unwinds and panic spreads and confidence evaporates. This is what happens when everyone believes this time is different and learns too late that it never is. This is the price of speculation, the cost of greed, the consequence of believing you can get rich without risk. Black Thursday, Black Monday, Black Tuesday, 3 days in October 1929 that destroyed millions of lives, that erased billions in wealth, that taught a lesson that should never be forgotten but somehow always is. The lesson that markets go up and markets go down, that what rises on leverage falls harder, that fear is stronger than greed, that panic is contagious, that this time is never different, never. You lived through it, you survived, but you never forgot. And the rest of your life, whenever someone tells you about a hot investment, about easy money, about guaranteed returns, you remember. You remember October 23rd, the night before the crash, the last evening of the old world, and you say no, always no, because you learned, you paid the price, you know the truth. There's no such thing as easy money. There's no such thing as risk-free wealth. There's no such thing as this time is different. The crash taught you, the hard way. The only way lessons like that are ever really learned, and you never forget. Now let me bring you back to 2025. Back to today. Because everything you just experienced, everything you just lived through in 1929, every warning sign, every rationalization, every mistake, every moment of that terrible night of October 23rd when you had to decide whether to hold or sell, all of it is happening again. Right now, the pattern is repeating, and most people don't see it, just like you didn't see it in 1929. Let's start with the euphoria. In 1929, people believed America had entered a new era, that modern technology, electricity, automobiles, radio, all of it meant the old rules didn't apply, that the Federal Reserve could manage the economy and prevent crashes, that stocks were no longer speculation but sound investments in American prosperity, that this time was different. Sound familiar? In 2025, what do we believe? That artificial intelligence has created a new economic paradigm, that technology companies are worth trillions because they'll dominate the future, that the Federal Reserve can manage inflation without crashing the economy, that modern financial instruments and sophisticated risk management have made markets safer than ever, that this time is different. It's the same belief, the same psychology, the same willful blindness, different technologies, different companies, different mechanisms, but the same human nature, the same conviction that we've figured it out, that we're smarter than previous generations, that the old lessons don't apply to us. In 1929, the Dow had increased sixfold in 8 years, from 63 in 1921 to 381 in 1929. People looked at that chart and saw validation, confirmation, proof that stocks only go up. In 2025, look at what's happened since 2009. The S&P 500 has increased more than sixfold from its 2009 low. The longest bull market in history, interrupted briefly by COVID, then resuming. 16 years of gains, a generation of investors who've never experienced a real bear market, who believe corrections are temporary, who buy every dip because dips always recover, who are certain that stocks only go up. In 1929, everyone was in the market. Not literally everyone, only 10% of households. But that 10% included housewives, bookkeepers, chauffeurs, cooks, ordinary people who'd never invested before, who took grocery money, borrowed from work, mortgaged their homes to buy stocks, because everyone around them was making money, because fear of missing out overrode fear of losing, because the experts said it was safe. In 2025, look around. Who's in the market? Everyone. Your co-worker who talks about his cryptocurrency portfolio. Your neighbor who day trades on his phone. Your sister who invested her savings in tech stocks. Your friend who mortgaged his house to buy more positions. The Uber driver who tells you about his options trades. The college student who put her student loan money into meme stocks. Everyone. Because everyone's making money. Because the subreddit says it's guaranteed. Because the influencers say you're stupid if you're not in. Because fear of missing out is stronger than any other emotion. And the leverage. Oh, the leverage. In 1929, 300 million shares were held on margin. People controlled $10,000 positions with $1,000 down. 10-to-1 leverage. When prices fell, margin calls forced selling. That forced selling drove prices lower, which triggered more margin calls, which forced more selling. The doom loop, the cascade that couldn't be stopped. In 2025, the leverage is everywhere. It's not called margin anymore, though margin debt is actually at record levels. It's called options, leveraged ETFs, crypto trading with 50x leverage, borrowing against your 401k to invest more, using home equity to buy stocks, taking out personal loans to buy Bitcoin, maxing out credit cards to buy calls. The leverage is higher now than it was in 1929. Much higher. But nobody calls it dangerous. They call it maximizing returns, optimizing capital, smart money management. And just like 1929, nobody's thinking about what happens when prices fall, when leverage reverses, when the forced selling begins, when the doom loop starts, because prices don't fall, they only go up. Everyone knows that. Everyone believes that, until the moment it stops being true. Now let's talk about the warning signs. In 1929, there were clear signals. Steel production declining, auto sales falling, bank failures increasing, the London Stock Exchange collapsing, experts warning about speculation, investigations into fraudulent practices, rate hikes by the Federal Reserve, all ignored, all rationalized, all dismissed as irrelevant to the new American economy. In 2025, what are the warning signs? Commercial real estate is collapsing, office buildings sitting 40% vacant, mortgages maturing that can't be refinanced at current rates, regional banks failing just like in 1929, Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, First Republic. That was 2023, the warning, the canary in the coal mine. And what did the market do? Rallied because the Fed stepped in, because it was contained, because banks are well capitalized. The same reassurances given in 1929. Consumer debt is at all-time record levels. Credit card debt over $1 trillion. Auto loan delinquencies at 2008 levels. Student loan defaults rising. The average American is leveraged to the max. One paycheck from disaster. But nobody worries because unemployment is still relatively low. Just like in September 1929 when unemployment was low and everyone had jobs, right until they didn't. Corporate debt has quintupled since 2008. Companies borrowed trillions at low rates to buy back stock and pay dividends. Now those debts need to be refinanced at rates 3 times higher. The math doesn't work, defaults are coming. But nobody worries because companies are managing their debt maturity schedules. The same thing they said in 1929 about companies being fundamentally sound. And the concentration. The Magnificent Seven, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, Google, Meta, Tesla. 7 stocks that represent 30% of the S&P 500's value. Just like 1929, when a handful of stocks propped up the entire market. When those stocks fell, they took everything down with them. In 2025, Nvidia alone is 7% of the index, trading at a PE ratio over 65. One stock. If it falls, if AI hype fades, if earnings disappoint, the whole market falls. Just like 1929. The same concentration risk, the same fragility, the same denial that it matters. The yield curve inverted in July 2022. Stayed inverted for 27 months, the longest inversion in history. Every time the yield curve inverts, a recession follows within 6 to 18 months after it normalizes. The curve normalized in September 2024. We're now in the danger window, the window when the recession typically starts. But nobody's worried because the economy is resilient. The consumer is strong. We've achieved a soft landing. The same things they said in September 1929. And here's the most chilling parallel. The date, October 23rd, 1929, was a Wednesday, the day when, in the last hour of trading, the market suddenly dropped 4.6% for no apparent reason, when fear finally overrode greed, when the first crack appeared in the dam, when people started realizing that maybe, just maybe, the experts were wrong, that maybe this boom was ending, that maybe it was time to get out. Are we approaching our own October 23rd in 2025? Our own moment when the market suddenly breaks? When the selling overwhelms the buying? When the algorithms trigger? When the margin calls go out? When the cascade begins? We don't know. We can't know, but the setup is eerily similar. The psychology is identical. The mechanisms are the same. The leverage is higher. The warning signs are flashing. We're in the danger window. And the response is identical to 1929. This time is different. The fundamentals are strong. The Fed has our back. Stocks are reasonably valued given future earnings. This is just a healthy correction. Buy the dip. Every rationalization, every excuse, every reason to ignore the warnings and stay in the market. The same words spoken in 1929, with the same conviction, with the same certainty, with the same result waiting at the end. Here's what you need to understand. The people in 1929 weren't stupid. They weren't reckless. They weren't ignoring obvious danger. They were making reasonable decisions based on the information they had, the advice they were given, the evidence they saw. Everyone around them was making money. The experts were confident. The government was supportive. The economy was strong. Every signal told them to invest. Every voice told them it was safe. And they were destroyed. Not because they were foolish, but because they were human. Because human psychology hasn't changed in 10,000 years. Because we're wired to follow the crowd, to believe in trends, to extrapolate recent success into the future, to rationalize away warning signs that contradict our beliefs, to convince ourselves that this time is different. We're no smarter than the people in 1929. We're no less vulnerable to euphoria. We're no more immune to panic. We're just humans, making the same mistakes at a different time, with different technology, but the same result. If you were alive on October 23rd, 1929, knowing what you know now, what would you do? You'd sell, obviously. You'd get out immediately. You'd take whatever price you could get. You'd accept a 20% loss to avoid an 89% loss. You'd preserve capital. You'd sit in cash. You'd wait for the crash to complete. You'd buy back at the bottom. Easy, obvious, but you wouldn't. You know you wouldn't. Because in the moment, with the information you had, with the pressure you felt, with the beliefs you held, you'd hold. You'd rationalize. You'd trust the experts. You'd follow the crowd. You'd believe this time was different. And you'd be destroyed, just like millions were destroyed. Just like everyone who didn't sell was destroyed. So here's the question for 2025. If we're living through our own 1929, if we're approaching our own October 23rd, if the pattern is repeating, what are you going to do? Are you going to sell now while you can, take profits, reduce exposure, move to cash, or are you going to hold, trust the experts, believe in the soft landing, believe this time is different? I can't tell you what to do. Nobody can. Maybe this isn't 1929. Maybe the Fed really has figured it out. Maybe AI really is different. Maybe modern risk management really works. Maybe the bull market continues for years. Maybe we're early in the cycle, not late. Maybe all the warning signs are wrong. Maybe the doomers are wrong. Maybe this time really is different. But history says it's not. History says the pattern repeats. History says that when euphoria is this widespread, when leverage is this high, when warning signs are this obvious, when the rationalization is this desperate, a crash is coming. Maybe not today, maybe not this month, but soon, within the window, within the timeline that the pattern suggests. And when your October 23rd arrives, when you're sitting in a brokerage office watching the ticker tape print, devastating losses when the margin call comes, when you have to decide whether to hold or sell, when your family's financial future hangs on a decision you have to make with incomplete information under extreme pressure, you'll remember this. You'll remember that someone told you. You'll remember the warnings. You'll remember the pattern. You'll remember 1929. And you'll wonder why you didn't act, why you didn't protect yourself, why you believed the experts, why you thought this time was different. Just like the people in 1929 wondered, just like they regretted, just like they paid the price. The pattern doesn't lie. It repeats because human nature doesn't change, because greed and fear are constants, because euphoria always precedes crashes, because leverage always unwinds, because this time is never different, never. The technology changes, the specific mechanisms change, the companies change, but the pattern stays the same. Build, leverage, euphoria, warning signs, denial, crash, devastation, recovery, over and over, through centuries, through empires, through markets. The pattern never changes. We're in the pattern now. In 2025, we're late in the cycle. The euphoria is widespread. The leverage is extreme. The warning signs are flashing. The denial is absolute. We're approaching the moment, the crack, the break, the October 23rd of our generation. Maybe it's next week, maybe next month, maybe next year. But it's coming. The pattern says it's coming. And when it arrives, the people who prepared, who protected themselves, who sold while they could, they'll survive. They'll have capital to buy at the bottom, they'll rebuild, they'll emerge stronger. And the people who held, who believed, who trusted the experts, who thought this time was different, they'll lose everything. Just like 1929, just like every crash, just like the pattern always delivers. So ask yourself, if October 23rd, 1929 taught us anything, what did it teach? It taught that markets crash, that leverage destroys, that fear conquers greed, that panics are fast and brutal, that recovery takes decades, that the only way to survive is to get out before the crash. Not during, before. When everyone's calling you foolish for selling, when the experts are saying stocks are cheap, when the crowd is still buying, that's when you sell, that's when you protect yourself, that's when you survive. October 23rd, 1929, the night before the crash, the last evening of the old world. If you could go back and tell yourself one thing, it would be sell. Get out. Don't believe the lies, don't trust the experts, don't follow the crowd, protect yourself, preserve capital, survive. So I'm telling you now, in 2025, before your October 23rd, before the crash that's coming, protect yourself, because the pattern doesn't lie, and this time isn't different. It never is. If this opened your eyes to where we actually are in the cycle, subscribe to this channel. Because when we hit our version of Black Thursday, when the market breaks and the panic spreads and the cascade begins, you'll want to understand what's happening and why. The answers aren't hiding in the future, they're written in the past, and I'll show you exactly where to look. The pattern is repeating. The night before the crash is coming. And the only question is, will you be prepared?